Hi! So, it's been quite well since my last video. I said that I was going to make one of these every 5 new movies I watched, and I've definitely watched a lot more than 5 movies since my last video, which was back in August, I think. Lots happened since my last video. I started university in September, and I've kind of just been putting this off, to be honest. But I'm here now. I'm going to try and catch up. I'm going to be releasing one of these every Friday. These 5 new movies, kind of my thoughts on, just kind of quick recaps. And hopefully I can get back on track. I'm planning on also making some more videos on more kind of planned topics rather than just talking about some movies I watched, but I like doing this anyway, so I'm going to carry this on. So today I'm going to be talking about How to Build a Girl, Project Power, Tenet, Babyteeth, and I'm thinking of ending things. As always, I will be talking minor spoilers for each of these, so if there are any of these that you specifically want to watch, there are timestamps on the screen and in the description, so you can skip around the video to find the films that you're actually interested in hearing about. But other than that, I guess we'll get straight onto it. Okay, so How to Build a Girl is a Amazon Prime original. It's a British coming-of-age story set in the 90s grunge era of music. Beanie Feldstein plays a 16-year-old girl from Wolverhampton as she moves to London to pursue a career in music criticism, which she wants to do as her parents are barely getting by and she wants to scrape up some cash. This was directed by Coky Giedroyc. I haven't seen any of her other films, but she's the sister of Mel Giedroyc of Mel and Sue, who I know off the Great British Bake Off. I think they were there for the early seasons. But yeah, this is very much a British film. Pretty much all the cast members are British. That being said, pretty much all of them are British except for Beanie Feldstein, who's the main character, Johanna Morgan. It's possible that I'm only saying this because I know that Beanie Feldstein is American, and I knew that before I watched the film, but I really didn't buy her performance. Her accent isn't great. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm not from Wolverhampton, so, I can't pick apart what about the accent was wrong, but it felt a little bit off, and I don't think that would have been a big deal, but you see there's a lot of voiceover in this film, so I'm kind of hearing her voice the entire time, and it's really annoying me. I don't think the voiceover specifically was done that poorly. I mean, in general, I don't like it, but, it wasn't that bad. It was just, it was kind of off-putting, the accent. The other actors were really good, though. I really like Paddy Considine. He's always great. He plays Johanna's dad. And Alfie Allen plays John Kite, who's basically this singer who kind of becomes a mentor and kind of there's a little bit of romantic interest, but it's mostly a mentor kind of figure for Johanna as she kind of navigates the work life. But yeah, that is kind of what the film's about, is navigating work life and kind of becoming an adult. She kind of dons a persona in her music kind of criticism world where she puts on this top hat, she dyes her hair red, and she kind of delves into the kind of harsh sides of criticism. She realizes that when you're mean, more people are going to listen to you because people find that interesting, which is unfortunately true. Obviously, it's a coming-of-age story, so it's pretty cliche, I guess, in that regards. She starts to kind of lose herself, despite people around her telling her otherwise. And near the end, she kind of realizes what she's been doing wrong and cuts off the people that have been kind of manipulating her or whatever. And nothing about it was done badly, but, you've seen this kind of stuff a lot before, so I don't know, it didn't really grab me that much. I watched this back in July, so I can really barely remember anything about this film. Nothing has really stuck with me, which is unfortunate, but it's on Amazon Prime, so it's probably free for you if you're watching this right now. If you're into this kind of stuff, if you're really into the music kind of scene of the 90s, yeah, I'm sure you'll find this interesting. Yeah, I doubt I'll rewatch this. It was alright. 2 out of 5. Project Power is a Netflix original superhero film. It stars Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Obviously, there's a lot of superhero films coming out nowadays. I guess not that many right now because of COVID, but it is still a very saturated market. This one takes a more kind of gritty and realistic take, which I guess isn't that new anymore. We've had a lot of these films and a lot of films that have done them better than this one. Obviously, The Boys has kind of really shaken up that whole kind of R-rated superhero film kind of genre. It's kind of done it better than pretty much any other film I can think of. And yeah, unfortunately, this film isn't really much of an exception. Basically, in the universe of this film, there's this little pill that if you take, you'll get superhero powers for 5 minutes. Each person will always have the same superhero power, but it varies between person to person. So basically, if I were to take it one time and I got, fire powers or whatever, every other time I took it after that, I'd also have fire powers. But then a different person would have a different kind of power. Obviously this is about a drug, so there's a lot of kind of links to the black market and kind of cartels and all that kind of stuff. We follow Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He plays a cop, and he kind of crosses paths with Jamie Foxx's character, who's kind of trying to hunt down the people who make this drug, as he believes that they have his daughter. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Jamie Foxx are definitely the reason you want to be watching this. They both did a really good job. Unfortunately, though, it's not the most memorable of films. I'm saying the same as what I said about How to Build a Girl. I watched this quite a while ago. I don't remember too much about it. There was some fun action sequences. I remember there being one actually specifically in a kind of apartment block. It was just a lot of destruction. You know, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the scene. It did have Machine Gun Kelly in it, which is kind of annoying because he's in a lot of films now and he's really not a very good actor, but whatever. It was an action sequence. Doesn't matter too much. I had fun with that one. Unfortunately, it's kind of the writing that wasn't particularly interesting about this. Although, yes, it's kind of different to most superhero films with its grittier take. It is pretty standard action movie, kind of. There's nothing really that's going to surprise you. There was a bit that kind of annoyed me where they kind of trick you into thinking maybe one of the characters that you're following isn't telling the whole truth. And I really like stuff like that. It's really interesting to me. You know, films like that, films like Fight Club, for example, they're really great on repeat viewings because once you kind of know the twist, I guess, you can kind of pick apart the film and see the kind of things that would have supposedly given away the twist before it actually happened. Unfortunately, they kind of hyped it up in this film and then are like, actually, nah, that would require a bit of effort, so we're just going to have a normal action movie. Which is a bit of a shame, but, you know, I guess these kind of action movie Netflix originals, you kind of don't expect too much from it. So in that regard, it wasn't that bad. I actually really like the premise of this film. I really like the idea of a drug kind of giving you superpowers, and it's very clear that there's a lot you can do with that. But yeah, it does kind of just turn into a kind of generic superhero film. You've got the bad corporation, you've got people trying to stop them, you've got some action fights in between. You got some likable characters. You know, it's pretty standard. You know, action movies aren't really like my thing. I mean, there are plenty of them I enjoy, but you need to have something really interesting about them to get me like to enjoy them. But you know, if you're an action movie fan, you're probably going to enjoy this. But yeah, pretty much like what I said about How to Build a Girl. It's on Netflix, so you know it's probably free if you're watching this. So you might as well. But yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of this. 2 out of 5. So, Tenet. This is the big one. This is the one that has had a lot of talk around it. Obviously, it's kind of the first blockbuster movie to kind of release since COVID, and kind of the only one, to be honest. I guess Wonder Woman 1984. I guess you could kind of put that on the list. But yeah, it's made by Christopher Nolan, incredibly famous and critically acclaimed director. I think the best way to describe this is it's essentially Nolan's kind of take on a James Bond type film. It's really quite clear that James Bond and the 007 kind of franchise was a big inspiration for this one, but obviously Christopher Nolan's kind of known for his concepts, and he's obviously very interested in time, so this is also a time travel movie. You know, I was actually really excited to see this. We'd just been in lockdown for months. What I assume would be the only lockdown. Unfortunately, not the case. I actually saw this film twice. Once when it first came out back home, and I saw it again about a month later with a girl from uni. You know, this was the first big release to kind of get people back in cinemas. It was quite a big deal. Unfortunately, I think as we all know, it didn't really work out that way. This film wasn't really received that well. I mean, it wasn't received badly either. It was just pretty split. You know, people really loved it. People really didn't like it. I'm glad this was the kind of film that came out at the start of the cinemas reopening again. You know, Christopher Nolan's films kind of need a cinema. I know people make fun of him because he's obviously quite elitist with the whole thing, but he does have a bit of a point. I saw Inception in the cinema actually, I think a day before I watched Tenet. They were re-showing it, which yeah, it was totally way better than when I'd seen it on my TV. So, you know, I kind of get what he's on about. Although I'm glad this was the kind of film that released in the cinemas as they were opening again. Nolan's definitely directed better than this. Quite a lot better than this. Yeah, I did enjoy myself. I did enjoy myself, but I don't think I would have as much if I was watching this at home. Which I guess isn't really much for criticism, because that's kind of the intention, is to watch it in a cinema. But yeah, no, I enjoyed myself. I kind of want to get something out all the way, which is obviously the sound mixing. I'm sure if you're kind of up to date with film criticism, you've heard it over and over about the sound mixing of this film and how awful it is. And I don't really have much to add. It is really awful. I'm pretty sure I understood 70% of what was being said, which sounds like not a bad amount, but you gotta remember that does mean that there's 30% of the movie I had no fucking clue what was going on and what was being said. And this is the kind of movie where the dialogue is really important because it's really concept heavy. Pretty much all the dialogue is exposition, which you kind of expect from his films and also you kind of need for a film like this. But because I didn't really understand most of what was being said, there were definitely points where I was kind of bewildered. It was a lot better on a second viewing because I already knew what was going to happen. I already knew the twists and turns. I already kind of understood how the time worked. You know, the dialogue really isn't prioritized at all. If there's any other thing going on during a conversation, you're going to hear that way louder. There was a bit where there was like an interrogation by some train tracks, and any time a train in the background moved, it was so loud that you just couldn't hear anything that was being said. A lot of people say that this is just kind of his style, and you know, a lot of his films are really hard to follow, but I don't know, I kind of disagree. Inception is the one that's always mentioned, and yeah, I don't think I've ever had any trouble understanding the plot of Inception. I don't think it's particularly hard to understand. You know, there is a lot of concepts in Inception, but, you know, Nolan spends the first kind of hour really thoroughly explaining it. So when you kind of get to, you know, that point with the van crashing off the bridge, you completely understand what's at stake. And it's a really well edited film, so there's a lot of tension. I didn't really feel that with this film. It was kind of just fun watching action set pieces. I don't think Tenet is really that interested in kind of setting stuff up like that. I think the main reason it has a plot really is just because it's a film, so it physically needs to have a plot. But I think the reality is Christopher Nolan just kind of wanted to shoot some cool action sequences with some backwards moving stuff, and you can really tell that's where the passion went, to be honest. Obviously, as I'm saying though, the action scenes were great. You know, Christopher Nolan is known for his love of kind of practical effects, and they really show here because the action sequences are really great. I don't think some of them I didn't enjoy as much as I would have normally, because there is this kind of backwards time thing where objects are moving forwards and backwards. And although I like that concept, it kind of looks really ridiculous. There's something really like inherently funny about watching people run backwards and stuff. So when you're in a really intense scene with this blaring music and explosions and a guy is like moonwalking, it looks really stupid. You know, punches and gunshots, they're satisfying to watch. They're not so satisfying when they're moving backwards, and that kind of pulled me out of a lot of the action scenes. It was kind of just hard to take it seriously, but you know, not all of the set pieces involve everything moving backwards and forwards. There are some that are kind of more traditional, and they're really great. John David Washington does his own stunts, and they're really a blast to watch. Obviously, I'm reviewing this pretty late, so it's unlikely, but if you are in a place where cinemas are open and they're still showing Tenet, I would definitely recommend it. You're trying to watch this digitally on your TV, your laptop, whatever. I wouldn't rush to see it, but you know, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I think people are kind of being too harsh about it. It is still a fun movie. There are a lot of problems with it. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Babyteeth. It's an Australian coming-of-age story, and it's the feature debut of Shannon Murphy. I'm pretty sure I actually saw this in my local cinema the day before I moved for university. I'll be honest, I hadn't really heard anything about this film, and I was mostly intrigued by the fact that it was an Australian movie. I haven't really seen many films from Australia. It's probably the English-speaking country that I've seen the least movies from, so that kind of interested me. I like Australian culture, and I find it interesting. Obviously, I recognize Ben Mendelsohn. He's really great, and Eliza Scanlon, I knew her from Little Women. She was really good as well. I'm glad I gave it a shot. I really, really loved this film. This film follows Eliza Scanlon's character, Miller, who is a secondary school student who gets diagnosed with cancer. I feel like a lot of movies that involve cancer in some way or another end up being a little too melodramatic. They kind of spend too much time on the subject and kind of forget about the other interesting parts of the characters. Yeah, this film felt quite different to that. It didn't feel like the kind of generic sick flick you've seen hundreds of times. Obviously, a main character having cancer is going to affect the story. I'm not implying that you should just ignore it, because obviously what's the point in the character having cancer if you don't address it? I think this is a lot more realistic take where their life doesn't completely revolve around it. Obviously it's affected by it, but they kind of still go about their normal lives. They still have relationships, they still have passions, they still have interests. You know, Miller and her family are trying their best to live normally in the situation that they are in. So Miller meets a slightly older guy who's a drug dealer who has kind of family problems, and that's kind of the beef of this story. Her relationship with him and his relationship with her family. This film has some really great handheld cinematography and a really vibrant color palette, which kind of mimics Miller's style. She has very vibrant colored hair and very vibrant colored clothes, and I just really like looking at this film. It's a really beautiful looking film. One thing I actually really loved about this film was how unremarkable things are portrayed. I think there's a sex scene near the beginning of the film where Ben Mendelsohn is literally just eating like a sandwich while they're doing it, and they're discussing taxes and kind of uninteresting things. Hollywood is obviously known for portraying pretty regular things as really glamorous and really interesting to kind of get the viewer involved, but I kind of like these more kind of grounded, more restrained takes. There is a bit of a side kind of plot romance between Ben Mendelsohn's character and their neighbor, which I wasn't really the biggest fan of. It kind of had no effect on the story at all. You could completely cut it out and the movie would be exactly the same. It didn't really feel like it needed to be there. It didn't really interest me. But I really enjoy this film. I really liked it. I'd really like to see some more films from Australia as well. I'm sure there are plenty of great ones. I'm just kind of new to Australian cinema. But yeah, this was really great. 4 out of 5. I would definitely recommend watching this. I'm thinking of ending things. Wow. I'm Thinking of Ending Things is a Netflix original movie directed by critically acclaimed writer Charlie Kaufman. He's known for his surrealist movies like Being John Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine. There are so many movies he's written that are really great. This guy has quite a resume, and I'm pretty happy to add I'm Thinking of Ending Things to that list. The title I'm Thinking of Ending Things sort of has a double meaning. It both refers to thoughts of suicide but also relationship troubles. On the surface, this film seems like it's about a relationship between two characters played by Jessie Buckley and Jesse Plemons. Two characters in their late 20s, early 30s, but there's something about it that's a little bit off. The film seems to have a lot of continuity issues. Characters change clothes randomly, they change ages randomly, objects move around. There's a lot of things that on the surface start to feel really weird, and you're trying to figure out what is off about it and why it's off, because it's very clearly done on purpose. And the kind of first half an hour is a little bit weird, and you're trying to get used to it, but then you really get into it. At least I did. I was really loving this film. This film definitely isn't for everyone. It definitely doesn't hold your hand. It treats you like an adult for the entire picture. There are a lot of films that come out nowadays that are kind of produced for the masses, and you can kind of just turn your brain off. And whilst I'm not implying that those kind of films are inherently worse, I just never really can appreciate them as much as films like this, films that really stick with you for, months after watching. As you can tell with how I've been talking about some of the previous movies, a lot of these haven't really stuck with me. It's been a while since I watched them. Obviously, I have seen this film twice. I saw it this for a second time relatively recently, less than a month ago, I think. This film is really sticking with me, and I really thought it was great. How I interpreted this film essentially is that it was about an old man who's contemplating suicide, and he's kind of looking back with regrets on how he acted and how he spent his life. The film we're watching is essentially a fantasy, a life that could have been, and that's why the details change and the continuity seems to break, because it's kind of the character toying with different ideas. What would it be like to bring home a girl when my parents were this age, or what would it be like to bring home a girl who is a film student, etc, etc. Even on the first viewing, when I didn't totally understand what was going on, I was really enthralled by the conversations. There's a lot of conversations between really good actors. Jesse Plemons, Jessie Buckley, David Thewlis and Toni Collette, they're all so good in this film. They're so good. There's some really interesting commentary here, you know, about regret and expectations, but also some really great discussions about art. You know, we've got kind of painting that is discussed in this film, you've got film, you've got musical theatre, dance, literature, tons of really, really interesting conversations. There are still plenty of 2020 movies that won't be releasing in the UK for a good while, so I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty confident that this will end up at the top of my 2020 must-watch list. I really thought it was great. I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. It's been a long while. It feels nice that I've actually got it recorded, and I'll be making another one of these next week, and next Friday you'll be seeing another 5 movies, and I'll be doing that every week until I catch up. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone who watched. If you want to follow me over on Twitter, I talk a lot of shit on there, probably more than I should. If you're interested in my thoughts on movies, which I assume you are if you're watching this video, you can follow me on Letterboxd. As soon as I watch a movie, I rate it and put my brief thoughts on over there. And yeah, that's pretty much it though. Peace.